This video discusses Germany and China's latest plans to control the world before and after they win the Third World War. Hello friends, this is Unmasked Truth with Harmanjit Saini, where I provide unique analysis of world events based on the unmasked truth that after surrender, Germany continued World War II clandestinely and became a killing machine. I also provide true news that you will find nowhere else. In my three-part videos, I discussed why I think Germany and China are ready to start a full-blown Third World War. They have been trying to do so since 2014 when they tested their latest weapon systems by bringing down Malaysian, Indonesian, Ukrainian, and Ethiopian airliners and bringing down a US military helicopter and Osprey aircraft. They have tried to inveigle Iran, Modi's India, and the Taliban regime in Afghanistan with the full-fledged help of the Taliban in Pakistan to start world war against the United States and their ally the Sikhs. These attempts have not succeeded so far. They started the war in Ukraine by provoking Russia with their plans to install nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons in Ukraine to be used against Russia. With the war not going well for Russia, they flirted with the idea of attacking Russia, annex as much of its territory as possible, depose President Putin, and set up a German masquerader from Russia, perhaps Alexei Navalny, as a puppet president. Then China got cold feet as it did not want to initiate a war with Russia that may end up being a mutually assured destruction type of war, in which it may be left holding the bag as Germany may choose not to intervene. Then, to boost China's confidence, Germany has sent troops into Ukraine to fight the war and is using its weapons from its own soil, or most likely space, to hit targets deep into Russia, even close to Moscow. The war in Ukraine seems to have turned into a drawn out, long term war. It also seems both sides are short on ammunition. As a result, the pace of war may slow down into a low intensity war but is likely to continue indefinitely, with the West continue to supply weapons to Ukraine. If that situation develops, Germany may get more deeply involved and send more troops into Ukraine and launch a full scale offensive, all under the guise of the Ukrainian armed forces. We will just have to wait and see how it develops. Latest information from my sources is that Germany and China may be thinking of another strategy to bring the world under their control and to even create the conditions to start a third world war. Trust the Germans to use the strategies used by the ancient ancestors in their attempt to control the world. Germans are the modern descendants of the ancient Assyrians. After Noah's flood, their patriarch Asher, after whom the Assyrians are named, had heard of pre-flood stories about how Lamech, the Zeus of the myths, and his family ruled the entire world. This is before the flood. After the flood, he too had a desire to build a world-ruling empire, that is Asher. The ancient historian of the 3rd century BCE, Berosus, as quoted in Eusebius Salvert's book, History of the Names of Men, Nations, and Places, page 326 and 327, states, at this period, which is 2055 to 2038 BCE, Jupiter Belus, which is Asher's mythologized name, Belus means Lord, Jupiter Belus began to be affected by a desire for conquest. He further says on page 327, Ninus, who was actually Asher's son and general of his forces, Ninus collected all his forces and taking advantage of the military preparations of his father Jupiter Belus, he declared war against all the nations. He spared none. Thus, the German desire to conquer and rule the world is as old as their original patriarch Asher. It was during the 3rd century after Noah's flood that Asher's son Ninus II carried out conquest of many nations within 17 years, again in the 2055 to 2038 BCE period. The world population was not large at that time, and most of humanity still had not moved too far away from Babylon area, though Noah had sent out various small colonies from his base in Armenia. Just before their conquest, Asher and his descendants had built heavily fortified cities with Nineveh as their capital. Their rulers' method after their conquest was to live in their capital Nineveh and demand that all conquered people and those who submitted to them because of their threats bring annual tribute imposed on them to the capital city Nineveh. Those that did not bring in the annual tribute were then attacked and brutally treated. Ancient historians note that the defeated kings were crucified and all the king's descendants put to death and others appointed as kings in their place. The Bible provides an excellent example of how this was done in Genesis 14, beginning in verse 1. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar, Arioch, king of Elasar, Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, and Tidal, king of nations. Now these were 4 Assyrian generals, that these made war with Bera, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Admah, and Shemeber, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. All these were joined together in the vale of Siddim, which is the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him, and smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Amines in Shaveh Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir unto Alparan, which is by the wilderness. And they returned and came to Enmishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazazon Tamar. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, the same as War. And they joined battle with them in the vale of Siddim, with Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, king of nations, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar, 4 kings with 5. And the vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there. And they that remained fled to the mountain. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals and went their way. Though the Bible in these verses does not identify them as Assyrian generals, king lists of the areas they ruled show them to be Assyrians. Here we see 4 Assyrian kings warring against the 5 kings of Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and Bela. The reason was that the 5 kings served the Assyrians for 12 years, but rebelled in the 13th year, leading to an attack by the Assyrians in the 14th year. Serving the Assyrians meant bringing the appointed annual tribute to the capital city. This means that the Assyrians had conquered these 5 city-states and put them to tribute. The 5 kings did so for 12 years, but conspired to rebel together and brought no tribute in the 13th year, inviting an Assyrian attack in the 14th year. Once the 4 Assyrian kings started on their rampage to punish the 5 kings, they did not stop with them. They attacked all neighboring kingdoms as well, as verses 5 to 7 state. They smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Amines in Shaveh Kiriathaim, and the Horites in the Mount Seir unto Alparan, which is by the wilderness. And they returned and came to Enmishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazazon Tamar. Once they conquered the United States, British Commonwealth, nations, and Israel, it's easy to visualize how Germany, China, and their allies will use this same strategy to gather the wealth of nations to themselves, as the ancient Assyrians did. They will simply impose tribute or taxes on nations and demand that it be delivered perhaps quarterly or annually to their country. But indications are that Germany and China are thinking of using this strategy to even provoke the United States and British Commonwealth nations to war with them. How could this be accomplished? The most likely way would be for China to demand its loans back that various nations in the world have been saddled with because of its Belt and Road Initiative. Because the debt burden is too high, the nations simply cannot pay the loans back and survive. Some may not even be in a position to pay the interest. Then China may start demanding payments in commodities at prices it sets. Nations won't be able to meet the demands and survive. Default is a certainty. China could then demand land and payment. The nations that refuse will invite invasion by China. China's fishing fleets that straddle the globe are militarized dual use vessels and can function as a part of the Chinese Navy. These fleets could be used to transport the armed forces, military equipment, and supplies. If the nations keep submitting to China and Germany's blackmail, the two nations will then be able to encircle and blockade the United States, Canada, other British Commonwealth nations, and Israel to stop their international trade. Thus, these nations will be forced to respond to China and Germany's threats at some point in time to keep international trade flowing. This is just another possible strategy in China and Germany's arsenal that they are contemplating using to provoke the Third World War. They will keep pursuing current strategies as well, such as escalation of the war in Ukraine or involving the United States in war over Taiwan. They could still inveigle the Taliban regime in Afghanistan with the assistance of the Pashtuns in Pakistan and Modi's India to attack the Punjabis in Punjab state in India, forcing the United States to come to the aid of the Punjabis. China and Germany will also certainly use their currencies as a weapon. Those nations that use the yuan and the euro as currencies to transact their international trade could be held to ransom. China's rapprochement with Russia is likely an effort to dominate international oil and gas trade in the Chinese yuan. All nations become more as nations become more dependent on trade with China and rely on imports from Russia, also denominated in the yuan. China at some stage could simply cancel the yuan holdings if they don't meet with China's demands, wiping out most of their foreign currency reserves, which would lead to economic catastrophes and likely many deaths. This would be similar to the situation currently faced by Sri Lanka and Pakistan. Perhaps China has this idea from the suggestion I have made to nations and to force China to compensate the world for causing the COVID-19 pandemic. The USA would simply cancel all of China's dollar holdings as compensation to Americans who suffered from COVID-19 or died from it. Nations would simply cancel their loan debts to China, and use that as compensation for COVID-19. Germany would use the euro to do the same that China would do with the yuan. This would become possible because it seems Germany has been successful in having German masqueraders placed as heads of government in European Union nations. Rulers of top 10 nations will secretly reach an understanding, or they probably have already done so, with Germany to hand over their nation's power to Germany and agree to support whatever Germany wants with the euro. This would fulfill prophecy in Revelation 17 verses 12 to 13, which state, "And the 10 horns." Now, horn is a symbol of ruler or king. "And the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour, meaning a very short time, with the beast. These have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast, who will be the German ruler." This is a caution to all nations that want to replace the dollar with the Chinese yuan and the euro as most of their reserve currency holdings. China and Germany would simply cancel their yuan reserves and euro reserves. It will make it easy for China and Germany to blackmail them. The USA has not used the dollar as a weapon in that way. However, I made the suggestion of canceling China's dollar holdings as a last resort because of the harm it has caused around the world, particularly to the United States by raiding its technology, as no other suitable method can be found than canceling their dollar holdings. Germany and China could blockade the United States and British Commonwealth nations and Israel from trade by intimidating nations to not export to these nations or import from them, rather than using their navies to block their ports. After a successful blockade, the USA, British Commonwealth nations, and Israel would be attacked in a full blown Third World War. After German led Europe with its global allies finally conquers the United States, British Commonwealth nations, and Israel, the German leader may appoint a pope of his choosing who would then fulfill prophecies in Revelation 13, verses 11 to 12, which state, "And I beheld another beast," and this would be the Pope of the Roman Church, "coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb. Lamb is Jesus Christ, and he spoke as a dragon, which is Satan. And he exercised all the power of the first beast, which is the German led Holy Roman Empire. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causes the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast." The Pope would crown the German dictator as the Holy Roman Emperor to fulfill other Bible prophecies. I will continue to watch developments and update you on China and Germany's attempts to start a full-blown Third World War. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please continue to watch my videos on important world events, World War III watch, politics, international business, how Bible prophecy is playing an important role in world affairs, advice on health and medical problems, and much more for insight and in-depth analysis. Please also subscribe to my YouTube and Facebook channels Unmasked Truth with Harmanjit Saini to view and get information on the latest videos.